Today we will be explaining dimensions and elements in MODLR and how to create them. To start us off, we are going to use a familiar setting, an Excel spreadsheet. An Excel spreadsheet has two dimensions, a column highlighted at the top and a row highlighted on the left. Elements are the sections within the dimensions. For columns, they are A, B, C, and so on, and for rows, they are 1, 2, 3, and so on. The coordinates of a cell are the sum of its related elements, one from each dimension, as seen here for the cell B2. In MODLR, dimensions and elements are largely the same. The main differences are that you can create and use a limitless amount of dimensions, and the resulting elements can be made to be descriptive, to define the data that will be stored. So instead of a rows dimension, like we had in Excel, we might have an accounts dimension, with elements such as sales, cost of goods sold, and gross profit as descriptors. Additionally, instead of having a column dimension, we might instead have a time dimension running across the top. Let's take again an element from each of our dimensions and locate the same cell we highlighted previously. Just by looking at this cell, we are able to better recognize the data in the cell, which now holds the cost of goods sold for February 2020. We can take dimensions a step further and organize them into hierarchies, which allows us to structure our elements into differing levels. Hierarchies are comprised of different levels of parent and child elements. Child elements will automatically add up into their parent element. For example, we can use the time dimension. We can create a hierarchy where months are children of quarters, so 2020 January, 2020 February, and 2020 March add up into their parent element 2020 Q1. Parent elements can also function as child elements to another parent. In this example, the 4 quarter elements all function as child elements to the parent element, calendar year 2020. With the overall structure creating a basic calendar year hierarchy. You can create multiple hierarchies within a dimension. If you instead wanted to view information about the July to June financial year, you can create a second hierarchy within the time dimension. This hierarchy has a similar structure to the calendar year hierarchy, with the financial year element being the parent element to quarters, which are then the parent elements to months. Let's get started and show you how to create dimensions in MODLR. To follow along with this tutorial, you can sign up for a free trial account on MODLR by registering on our homepage. You have two options to create a dimension in MODLR. Either click on the Actions button in the top right corner and select New Dimension from the drop-down, or go to the Dimensions tab and click on the New Dimension button. Here you will enter the name of the dimension. We will create an account dimension for our example. And the dimensions type, the different types are Standard, which is what you will use for most dimensions, Time, which is auto-populated using model variables, Scenario, which is used for different model scenarios, Measure. Each cube will have one measures dimension, which will usually be unique to that cube. This dimension should be used to determine what type of values are entered in the related cell. Geographies will be a future enhancement in the next MODLR release. Now, we can enter the dimension editor, either by double-clicking on our new dimension, which opens it in a new tab, or by clicking the Manage button. Here we can add hierarchies, edit, or delete them. And here we can see and edit the elements within these hierarchies. For our example, we will use a very basic operating income account structure. We'll create the operating income element. To create child elements of operating income, we simply go to the next line and hit Tab. We will add gross profit as a child of operating income, which will in turn have its own child elements. Now, under gross profit, we will add revenue and cost of goods sold, but instead of using their names, we will use their accounting account codes. This can make things easier if, in the future, you link your accounting system into MODLR. Now, we can add a -1 in square brackets in front of an element to change the sign of the values when this element is being added into its parent element. So if we enter 5,000 in revenue and 2,000 in cost of goods sold, gross profit will automatically equal 3,000. To stop making children for gross profit, we simply tab back so we are in line with gross profit. And now we can add operating expenses using our accounting codes. This is once again a child of operating income. While using account codes can be useful, you may want things to be clearer in some situations. For this, we can use aliases, which are effectively nicknames which can be turned on in your reports. So let's create an alias with the title name. And click Save Changes. And here we can edit the alias. Instead of the accounting codes, we will use their actual names. Revenue, cost of goods sold, and operating expenses, to clarify to different users what these elements mean. As well as adding -1 in brackets, you can also add an S with square brackets in front of an element, which will allow the cell to accept text as well as numbers to be entered. This is usually only used on elements within a measures dimension. You can have multiple hierarchies within a dimension. These hierarchies can use the same elements, but have them structured in a different way, or use completely different elements. Looking at the time dimension, for example, we can see the same month elements being added up into different parents depending on the hierarchy. We also have a hierarchy which doesn't have any month elements, and instead uses annual assumptions, which can be used to hold values not related to any particular month. This concludes the tutorial on how to create dimensions in MODLR. Don't forget to sign up to MODLR's free trial account or submit any questions to MODLR's community forum. Thanks for watching.